Welcome back to the show. Today we've got Ayesha Shelton here, and she is a top producing real estate agent and owner of Park Street Homes Construction Company. She's also a devoted wife and busy mom and deeply committed to philanthropy. So, what I'm hoping we can touch on today is obviously your philanthropy efforts and also get this behind the scenes look on what it's really like to be a real estate agent in a busy market. And on top of all that, have a family that you have to juggle as well. So, welcome to the show, Ayesha, and I'm excited to learn from you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have the conversation.
So, I want to start off. You were in early childhood education. You made a pivot into real estate. If you could tell yourself one thing when you started this entrepreneurial journey, what would it be?
Ooh, just be prepared for change and embrace it. So I do have a master's degree in child and family development, and I spend a majority of my career, particularly my early career in early child education. And I absolutely love that. However, I recognized very early that I would not be able to live the life that I imagined I would live by working in early childhood education directly. And so it was a kind of a pivot of a job that I took at a bank in a high income area in the Houston area, that I learned ways that people who lived the life that I wanted to live made money. And real estate was one of them. And that's when I kind of went down the rich dad, poor dad rabbit hole, and the rest is history.
So, what was that vision that you had then of this life you wanted to live? Was it more time? Was it a significant amount of money? Was it material? Like, I have a certain amount of cars or a certain car I want or anything like that? What was that you saw in
Yeah,
your mind's eye?
it was choice and freedom. And so I recognized very early on in my early childhood career that I think whatever I did, always said that I wanted to I wanted to be the top. So if it were an executive, I wanted to be a top executive. If it were education, I wanted to get a doctorate in whatever I studied. But then I looked at the income of someone with a doctorate in early childhood education and thought, well, it's not necessarily the material thing that I wanted. It was more the freedom to do what I wanted to do. So to love what I do, but also have the ability to travel and the flexibility to make decisions that kind of didn't bind me to a 9 to 5 job.
Also, and looking at the income, I think with someone with a master's in early childhood education, there's a certain, how do I say this? There's like a little bit of, there's more restrictions on what you can do with your
Yes,
life when you're not making as much money. It's nice to be able to make money and
right.
not worry about buying. This is a silly example, but for me, when my husband and I first got married, we were not making a lot of money. I didn't own a business, I was working corporate. And it was like store brand, eggs and store brand, like whatever it was. And now
Yeah,
I can buy organic and I can buy the more higher price, which is such a small thing, but it gives me
yeah.
such joy. And when you're on a limited
Yep.
income, that's something that you have to always be thinking about, right? Like you can't just drop whatever amount of money you want on something because the budget is always in your mind, always
Well, and
there.
I remember my dad trying to encourage me to get my doctor. He's like, okay, you got your master's, now go get your doctor. And I'm like, but everybody that I know that has a doctorate in the industry that I'm in, like, they're struggling. So why would I go spend more money to not make any more money or very little more money than I would have made without a doctorate? So it just didn't jive with me
Mm. And
anymore.
you have to not say you didn't love what you did, right? Because I don't know you, but I know my
I
friend
did.
who's a psychologist and she this is like everything for her. Like she can't imagine doing anything
Yeah.
else and it doesn't matter the money. This is everything to her. And I think there are those type of people and then there's other type of people who maybe like you and me are more of the lines that says like, I want to earn more because I have these dreams that I don't want to be trapped or have boundaries on what I can do. So when did you decide like,
Absolutely.
okay, I'm going to be a real estate agent? How long did it take you to go from nothing to making the
Right.
switch, diving down that rabbit hole and then getting to a point where you felt like, okay, I'm starting to see my dreams come to fruition. It might not be everything you have now, but how long did that take you?
Sure. This was something that I stumbled upon. It evolved. It wasn't something that I said, you know what, I want to be a real estate agent and I'm gonna leave early child education. That is not how that went down. I think I was first introduced to wealth building and people building wealth by working at the bank, which led me to books and podcasts like Bigger Pockets. So I'm just gathering information and making the moves that I can. For example, I bought a house when I was 23 years old, and I, at the encouragement of one of my clients at the bank, and because I made below the poverty line or something like that, I qualified for grant programs. So I was able to, in 2008, which was a great time to buy a house if you bought it right, built a house from the ground up, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, just a single woman, but I got like $80,000 in assistance to build that house, right? So it is a great investment. It was a great investment. Now it's something that pays me $700 a month in cash flow. Just because no, it's more than 700. It's like 850. My mortgage was $700 for a brand new house, and now I rent it out for 1,600 or 1,650. My husband manages it now, but it was, and in my mind, I knew that it would be the start of a real estate portfolio that I wanted to build. Because remember, I linked real estate to wealth building, and that was my entryway into it. Then I met my husband, and I have all of the great ideas. So I am an ideator with the best of them. I just was so fortunate to marry an executor. And if you put an ideator and an executor together, whether that be as business partners, husband and wife, I mean, those two things are like magic. Two people who have the ability to, one has all of the higher level vision kind of part of a business or a venture, and the person who's always going to manage the details, and put those two things together, you can be very successful. So I opened the door up for him to learn about real estate too, and then the combination of ideation and execution, and we just kind of blew up into what we are today.
Oh, fascinating. Tell me, what's the hardest
Yeah.
thing you think that there is about being a real estate agent? And is there really a work-life balance? Because I see that a lot, like on,
Yep.
simple ads, like become a real estate agent, control your money, control your time. And I see that for freelancers too, right? All of that. But there's obviously a lot of steps. Now that you've reached this point, what is the hardest thing? And is there a work-life balance?
I think that there is a lot of, you see all of the good stuff, but I feel like real estate agents, there's feast and famine. There's some of us who are eating a lot, and regardless of the economy, we're doing very well. I'm blessed to be one of those people. But then there are people who go into the industry and they see people that are doing what we're doing, and they're like, I'm going to have that life too. And it's not quite the same. And not everybody is going to perform at that same level. And so there's a buildup, and everybody's buildup is different. There are strategies that you can use to build up, but to completely understand that if you're going to jump in real estate and transition from something else, one, you need kind of a support system. So whether that's a husband or a family member, because you're not going to make money right out the gate. And in order for you to build your business, you're not going to make very much money at first. So you need a foundation that can support you until you can get there. And then when it comes to work-life balance, I am very much a delegator. So I've always been really good at that. I don't think I've cleaned my own house since I owned a house. I always hired a housekeeper. Even when I didn't have very much money, that was something that I prioritized. So I recognize the value of leverage and delegation. And so I'm able to perform at a high level because I do leverage and delegate in my life as well. So I do have a nanny who helps pick up the kids from school, because some of the networking opportunities that exist are in the evening time. So she can assist with that. And my kids can still have the same routine. I do have a chef that prepares food for my family, because I spend so much time navigating and negotiating deals and trying to run a business, that the putting together a healthy meal for my family, there's nothing left there. So it's a trade-off. It really is a trade-off. And I could be the best mom if I didn't have to figure out how to manage and run a six-figure business. But it's very hard to manage and run a six-figure business with all of the mental capacity that it takes to do that, and pour that same energy into your house as well.
Absolutely. I mean,
Personally.
No, I agree because I'm at the stage in my business, in my life where my son is a toddler and he's home with me 2 days of the week. And as someone who's similar to you, very ambitious, and I want to be the best I can be in everything, it's hard not having every single day 8 hour, 9 hour days to myself. And I did before because my daughter is older. She's almost 6 years older than my son. So there was a time where I had every day until 3 p.m. and it was wonderful. And I got so much done. And it's hard when you go back and I have to just remind myself like this is a different stage of my life. It will end, but you have to be okay with realizing you're not going to get everything done that you want to get done. Right. But if you're someone who maybe is like, no, I am absolutely not okay with that, then you need to think about delegating and you need to think about like, what does that look like for your family and your situation? I have a question. I saw on your page, you have some listings on either like 20 million plus dollars, right? How hard is it to sell those listings and how long does it usually take?
It depends, right? So real estate is very much local. Houston, particularly, is a very large city, fourth largest city in the country, and so it even a area of town, all the way down to street. Like one street is better than this street. This area of town is better than
Mm.
another area of town as far as the ability to move a property. So it really just depends. I have some properties that go like this, and then I have others. There's lots of inventory in the area that's very similar, and if it's on the market for 6 months. So I, it's a hit or miss. There is no recipe other than you market the heck out of these properties. A social media presence certainly helps. And then I don't really do pay per click kind of marketing, but I do paid ads on social media.
Okay. And what do you think differentiates you from other real estate agents?
So my superpower is relationships. I am the queen of building relationships, budding relationships, whether they're new or old, and nurturing relationships as well. Real estate is a relationship-based business. People usually work with people who are close to them and present themselves as an expert in that particular arena. And so staying top of mind is very important. What I'm not great at, if I'm being honest, is the details. And so again, I find myself now I have someone who is good at the details. So my business has skyrocketed now that I have someone that I work with that is very detail oriented. So I can go out and blaze trails in relationships, and he can make sure that all of the day to day transaction based things happen smoothly and efficiently.
That is something that we're going to I want to touch on that a little bit later about hiring and making
Yeah.
sure you get the right people and how you know
Yep.
when to delegate and whatnot. But I wanted to briefly jump into your philanthropy efforts because I don't often have women on my show who are very philanthropic, basically. What do you do to give back? And at what point in your business did you decide, okay, I'm making enough that I want to start giving back what I earn?
Okay, so I grew up in a very philanthropic family. So my mother has a nonprofit that's over 30 years old. My dad is the pastor of a church that is philanthropy. My dad is the pastor of a church, and so being community minded and working in the community was always something that was close to me growing up, but also something that I wanted to do as I got older. It's just kind of a natural thing to do. However, I tell people all the time who want to be philanthropic or give back to the community is that you have to get yourself straight first, right? And so you want to give back, but you have to have one, something to give back. You have to have the time to give back. And so first you should focus on getting you, your life, and your finances together so that you can give back, even if that's just your time. And so for me, it's waxed and waned in different times in my life. When I didn't have children, I was super in the community. I served on boards and, was a part of the Junior League of Houston, just lots of nonprofits and giving of my time. As my life has gotten more complicated, I have a baby business and I have babies and I have a husband, which can sometimes act like a baby. All of those things require so much more of my time. And so now I'm able to give my money and less of my time. And so it kind of waxes and wanes where you are in your life. for me, it's waxed away where I am in my life. I was able to give more of my time when I had it. Now that I have less time, I try to, budget to give more money towards efforts, philanthropic efforts.
Yeah, I can't imagine at my this time in my life giving time. Like I
I
barely
have it. I have none.
I barely put myself to sleep at night. Like I don't know how I would
Right.
even like give any kind of time.
But I look
So
forward to that changing too, because as my children grow up and my business matures, then I will have more time to give, but I always will in some shape or form or fashion be giving back to the community.
yeah. And I love that. I love that because like I said, I don't think I have many women who or maybe they just don't talk about it and they should talk more about that because that was something that was very prominent I saw when I was researching you. Um so let's talk a little bit briefly about time management techniques because you're talking about delegating, you're talking about having a nanny. What would you recommend to fellow women entrepreneurs who are juggling multiple things? What are some time management techniques that you can really pinpoint that have helped you grow and scale your business and keep things running smoothly?
Running smoothly. Can I say that? Can I say that things run smoothly?
Running
In some
haphazardly.
of my Yes, right. And some of my, I think everybody has to identify that thing that works for them. I'm obviously a podcast, YouTube, university kind of girl. And so I'm always looking for the best ways to manage time, focus, because in the world that we live in today, it's really hard to focus with all of these 30-second clips. And I find myself struggling with that as well. One of the things that has worked well for me is the Pomodoro technique if you're familiar with it. So if you're not familiar with it, this technique helps you to focus for a 25-minute period of time. And so you take 25, you work in cycles. So 25-minute cycles, you work on a single thing for 25 minutes. So you silence your phone, you kind of put on your D&D in general, and then 25 minutes of focus work on one single task. You can't do anything else. You're just going to work on that one single task. Naturally other things are going to pop in your head, right? Like, oh man, I need to, order some food with the food delivery service, or things are going to pop up in your head. But as those things pop up, you just write it down. Like you're going to get to that afterwards, right? After that 25 minutes, you have to stop and take a 5-minute break, a 5-minute brain break, a walk, a check your social media. But literally, it's that cycle 4 times, and then you take an hour break, right? So 25 minutes of focus work, 5 minutes. I usually give myself a social media break in those 5 minutes, and then I pick up on 25 again. But what you find is that you're able to complete so much more because your brain is not in so many different places and you don't shift every time something comes up or changes. So you want to make sure you get yourself in an environment that you can successfully do this so you won't have constant interruptions or your phone ringing. But it definitely helps to like get things done that you've kind of been struggling to get done.
I swear, like as you were talking about this, I was like, I feel like another guest brought this up at one point, but I've been doing this
Mhm.
for so long that I can't remember. But what is interesting is this I've got a summit coming up and I need to prepare a PowerPoint for it. And I've been procrastinating and putting it off. And then lately I was like, okay, I just need to get this done. And so what I've been doing at night is doing 20 minutes. I'll like set a timer, 20 minutes, that's it. And then I move on. Now it's not going to be done on time, I just realized. But this has really helped me because when I was just thinking about it in its entirety, it was intimidating.
Mhm.
Like, oh my God, that's going to be like
Mhm.
50 slides or 40 slides. How am I going to get that all done with everything else I have to do, but chipping away at it bit by bit? And it's similar. But what I like about this, however, how would this work when you have calls, right? When you have calls or you have to go out and show a house, how does this technique work? Or do you have like one day that you set aside that you're just doing stuff?
Yeah, so there's a time for calls too, right? Like we're so connected as a society, we just stay so connected that people think that just because I call you or email you that I'm supposed to respond or pick up immediately. But there was once a time where I didn't get your call until I got back home and checked my answering machine, and then I called you back, right? So you do have to respect your time enough to say, and you carve out time, right? So there's prospecting time. That's a thing for real estate agents. And if it isn't, it should be a time where you spend calling people that are your clients or past clients or people that you would like to be your clients. But even that is a block. The only thing you're doing in that time is prospecting. And so just like I would have prospecting time, if I'm in a Pomodoro, nothing else matters. It's complete D&D. And anything that needs to be attended to immediately, I mean, the question is, does it really need to be attended to? And I'm going to give a very extreme example, right? My kids' school call, and there's other people that are on my emergency call list, right? But my kids' school call, because my kid had an incident at school, it's customary that they call you and say, I just want to let you know such and such fell and he's got a little bump on his head, right? So he has a bump, and that's important, true. But 15 minutes after the little bump, if I finally check my phone, because now I'm done with my Pomodoro, they'll still have a bump. They'll still give me the same update. And if it's a true emergency, they can reach out to the next in line for a true emergency. But it's nice to know that my kid bumped his head, but in the middle of my Pomodoro, tell me afterwards, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a time period that you absolutely have to respect.
Ooh, I like this.
For it to work.
I think we're going to talk a lot about this in the show notes. I'll bring it up because this is, I think, one common theme I've heard often in these interviews is that we need to relearn or learn, if you're very much younger, how to focus. Right. And I think that is something that is lost as people grow up with social media and the internet and everything just being phones and everything just being such a distraction all the time that it's hard for people to focus. And one of the things I've seen from most successful people is A, hiring a team, and B, focusing, learning how to focus again and just cutting all distractions off. And it's kind of an art that's starting to be lost. But what I like about what you're talking about with the Pomodoro technique is that it's something that has very clear rules and boundaries and can be taught, right? So like for the younger generation of entrepreneurs, if they have trouble focusing, something like this is really helpful because it's not just like, oh, well, focus. Okay, well, what do I do? And then your phone goes off and you check in, whatever. This is like, no, you got 25 minutes and then you get your 5-minute hit that you can do whatever you want. And then, yep. And then 25 minutes. And then that hour after those 4 of them, I like that because again, it's teachable and it is something that people can use that has very clear parameters. Let's jump into your delegating and your team that you have and transition into that because, you said that you found someone who's really detail oriented. So they're taking the details from you. What are some challenges you've had when hiring?
Ooh, let's see here. It's just been a roller coaster. It's been a journey. And with each hire that I've made, I've learned something new. Whether that be something great, like, oh my God, this is great and this person does this great, or like, okay, how can I ensure that I don't hire anybody who, how can I identify this trait in somebody again? And so I truly thank every single person that has come through my team because I've learned so much from them. And now I'm at a place where I'm a team of 3. I have a virtual assistant in the Philippines. I have an agent that I work with that's my detailed oriented person. And then I can cast the vision and he kind of runs the plays for me. I bring the business in. He does the contractual stuff. I have a vision for a marketing plan that we want to run. He kind of can get the details in order. So I kind of leaned out from this large team to having just a team at currently. Now, who knows where this will go? So I can't say this is the ultimate team and this is what you need to build. This is kind of where I am in my journey of teamdom. And I've had everything from a series of 6 people on my real estate team down to 2. And here we are at the 3 of us.
So what do you think you would give for advice for women who are trying to hire and trying to get it right and avoid mistakes, if at all possible?
Yes. So hire someone who is the opposite of you. Whatever you do well, you don't want to hire someone who does that well too. Look at your strengths and your weaknesses and hire to your weaknesses. We tend to like to hire people that are like us. It feels good. We can have a great time talking and we relate like, oh, we're the same. But you do not want to hire someone who is the same as you. And I'm thinking about an intimate team. You want to hire somebody that has Your weaknesses or your challenges are their strengths. Somebody loves numbers. Somebody loves crunching numbers. They absolutely love looking at spreadsheets and data and reports. If that's not you, hire someone who does for your business. Make sure that you have a CPA. Someone loves budgets. I mean, whatever it is that you find challenging to do, find someone who does that really well. The same way it comes natural for you to do what you do. So for me, it's relationship building. The same way it's just natural for me to build relationships. There's somebody out there who naturally loves the details. Like, I don't like the limelight, but I love working in the background. That's your person. That's my person.
Mm, mm. How do you find people? Is it through referrals in the real estate world? Do you put out job descriptions? How does that work? I know nothing about this.
Yeah, right. It's just like dating. The best way to find a mate is for like one of your friends to hook you up with one of their friends because they kind of know you well enough to go, I think you two will work well together. I found the most success in that arena. There are job posting boards for real estate agents and real estate teams. You can post on social media if you have a great social media presence. But one of the best ways to find that, I think, is to say, hey, I'm looking for somebody to fill this role and asking your network, your family and friends, do you know somebody who you think would be a good fit? Like, you know me well enough. You kind of know how I work. Do you know
Mm,
somebody that would be a good fit?
mm. How do you think your management or leadership has changed over the years with your hiring?
I mean, I definitely learned on the fly. I didn't read very many leadership books or, take any leadership courses. And looking back, I'm sure that would have been helpful. I just kind of gathered information as I went. So when it was time to, let go of a relationship or a hire that I had, I kind of took an evaluation and said, okay, what worked well with this person, what didn't work well. And then as I interviewed for the next role, it just increasingly got better until I finally got to a place where I understood what's a good fit for my team and my culture. But at first, it was really just like, you want to work here? Let's go. It became refined over time.
Let's shift gears quickly because I want to talk a little bit about profit and expenses, profit and loss, really with real estate, because I think it's one of those where that balance between making money and spending money can be very close to each other, right? You know, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I want to ask what what do you find, do you even have in your head like what a ratio is or like a percentage is of like what you make versus like what you spend and
Spend.
what a future real estate or someone who's maybe wants to be where you are, who's building out a team and building out like wanting to do new construction and flip houses, or I don't even know because I'm not in that field. What does that look like in terms of the ratios and the percentages of making money and spending money?
Yeah, I'll say this that you can't manage what you don't measure, right? And depending on what the market looks like, the last 3 years, the market was, I mean, amazingly beautiful, right? And all you had to do was have a license and breathe, and you could essentially make money in real estate. And we did. We made lots of money in the last 3 years in real estate. And then the end of the year comes and you get your 1099 tax statement and you go, I made how much? And where is it? Because it's just gone, right? I do have a bookkeeper. I do get P&Ls, and I did not manage. I just didn't manage it. I just saw money. And when you see money coming in and you have cash flow, it's just so easy to look at your balance and see your bank balance and go, okay, well, great. I have, this amount of money. And so you go and spend based on your bank balance instead of your actuals, right? And so for me as a business owner, and I know that there people like to look for like all of the rosy things, I just had to learn that the hard way, right? Like, you made $300,000 and I'm looking at my bank account like, where is the 300,000? Right.
So where does that
And
money go
so
then? That's I guess where I'm what I'm most curious about. Like, does it go just to the team? Does it go to marketing? Does it go? What are the operational costs
so
of a real
I would
estate
say
business?
marketing for me at that time, it was marketing, it was staff. And so I had a full-time staff person at that time. So marketing, staff, a lot of it is marketing. Um, operating expenses, so rent, and I lease a car on my business, which is a great benefit for being a business owner. Um, I'm thinking about marketing, I'm thinking about marketing like video marketing, photography, print,
Oh, right. Because you need to
digital
take
ads.
pictures of, and like,
Hmm.
and some
There
places
are
even have
there's
these like 3D tours now and stuff that I guess you would have to obviously have to pay for that, which I never thought about. Yeah.
Right. And branding too, which costs money, right? So if I'm going to post content and I'm branding myself as this expert in the field, there's a certain aesthetic that I'm looking to have as
Yes.
well. And so all of that goes into that and maintaining that image and that lifestyle, because at this point, real estate is also a lifestyle business as well. And so it just can get out of hand if you're just making a lot of money and you're like, but I'm a lifestyle business. So I should have, this designer bag, or I should drive this. And it just needs to make sense. It just needs to make sense.
So what do you do now? Do you meet with your accountant once a month or something? How do you make
I
sure that
do.
you aren't surprised anymore when you say like, "Oh no, where'd the money go?"
Yeah, so I do meet with my bookkeepers once a month, and I also keep up with expenses for my listings as I go. And so I'm looking at how much am I spending to market these homes, and then comparing that to how much I make, and then looking at that from an actual, because the other thing is you receive a commission check and you go, oh, wow, great, I made, $20,000. But honestly, how much did I spend to make this $20,000?
Mhm.
Whether that be in mileage because you drove around and showed them several houses over time, or if you're the listing agent and you're selling the house, how much did I spend on print? How much did I spend on internet marketing? Videography, photography, and managing those expenses as well.
Okay. That's helpful. That's kind of what I was looking for is just
Yeah.
understanding moving forward for people who want to be like you and be in your position and grow the real estate team. What do they need to think about? So meeting with an accountant once a month and really understanding each listing's expenses is helpful. Do you
Yeah.
think have you ever had a month in the red where you've been like, "Ooh, oopsie"?
Oh yeah, listen. So the other thing about real estate is it's a pipeline business, which I imagine a lot of businesses are, but it can be a feast or famine business, and so there could be months where you make $120,000 in a single month, but then you can have literally not close anything for 3 months. And so if you make decisions based on the 120,000 and you don't manage it appropriately over the next 3 months, that could be a challenge, one. But also it is I think that it's easy to get comfortable as a real estate agent with a commission. Like, I'm working on a deal, especially for new real estate agents. I'm working on a deal, and you have a deal that you're working on, and you know that that deal could yield, let's just say, $20,000. Well, $20,000 can solve a lot of people's problems, right? But the goal is to always daily be working on making sure that your pipeline is filled so that you'll be closing deals every month and will have a good flow.
Mm,
If I think about all of the newer real estate agents, the moment they get a buyer or seller on the hook, they stop prospecting. They stop reaching out to people to try to fill their pipeline. So I try to teach my team and my agents, like, okay, you might have someone on the line to buy a house, and in 30 days you should get paid out on that, but you want to make sure that you're always on the phone and building relationships so that January, February, March, April, May, you can close 3 to 5 deals a month.
mm, hmm. And real estate agents, it's interesting because I feel like once you find a real estate agent, you're going to be very loyal to them as a person, as the average person. So having to go out there and find people who aren't attached to a real estate agent too, that's got to take like a lot of, I
Right.
mean, a lot of referrals, a lot of networking, a lot of just making sure you know
So
someone.
I'll actually combat that, right? People work with people who are top of mind and are in proximity. So this is a
Mm,
thing for realtors, right? Your family members who buy or sell a house with somebody else, and they're like, "I'm a realtor. I can't believe they didn't come to me." That's never the family member's fault. That's your fault, right? Because you need to be top of mind. So I had a cousin call me who was very upset that another cousin of ours sold their house or listed their house with another realtor. And she said, and I told him, your own cousin is a realtor. And I said, well, Honestly, I can't remember the last time I've spoken with him. He's probably working with someone who he has an actual relationship with. And she said, well, that
Mm.
doesn't matter. And I said, well, just ask him who he's working with. It was a coworker of his. So he wanted to sell his house and he's having a conversation with his coworker. And she says, like, oh, I can help you. Well, why wouldn't he give it to her? I talk to you every day. I obviously want you to be successful. So as real estate agents, it's important that we stay top of mind. We do that strategically. It feels very natural, but honestly, I have a CRM and I also have a time that I'm supposed to call you. So if I talk to you and you say you want to buy a house, oh, I'll probably be buying in the next year. Okay. So if you're going to buy in a year, it's my job to make sure that I touch you at least once a month. Right.
Mm.
If you're going to be buying in the next 90 days, then it's my job to make sure that I reach out to you at least once a week. Right. I want to
Mm.
make sure, is there something that you need or have you been looking at stuff? Like I'm going to make sure that I keep, but it's very strategic. It feels very
Mm.
authentic. But it's extremely strategic. And all of those are things. Relationship building is the key in this particular industry. It's about who you have the relationship with.
Well, I was just thinking for my own audience, a lot of them, which are service-based business owners, or even like digital agencies and stuff like that. It's really important for any business owner to always be top of mind. Like people think, they're like, oh, I'm talking about myself too much, or I'm advertising this too much, or aren't people going to be sick of seeing my stuff all the time on Instagram or wherever, LinkedIn? And I'm always like, no, as a coach, I'm like, no, 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 because do you know how much information our brains get a day? And when they finally need a service like yours, they need to remember you because you've been top of mind all the time. Now, of course, it's a little different, like calling, texting, like that doesn't really happen in my industry as much, but it's an important lesson that I think any business owner can take, especially with marketing, is to always be top of mind. And it reminds me of my real estate agent. I just called her yesterday, actually. And she answered right away. And I'm sure she was excited thinking I was going to sell the house. But I was like, hey, we're thinking of doing a bathroom remodel. Do you have any suggestions for contractors? But of course, she's asking, oh, you going to move? Are you going to do your addition to your house? What are you going to do? And what about your mom? Has she moved yet? And like every single person she knows in my life, she was asking if they moved or they're interested. And now it's just like, no, we're good. We're good. But she's on it. She is
Yeah,
on it. Like she knows she's always got to keep those connections open. So
absolutely.
I'd like to talk as we wrap this up about scaling the business and how you have done that. So, can you lay out steps you think that really helped you scale your business?
What really helped me scale my business? I think definitely finding the right people, right? People think that scale and growth is just about adding people to your organization. And what I learned very quickly was that adding the right people matters more than just adding people. So when you think, it's particularly in real estate, you think, okay, if I grow my team, the more people that I have on my team, the more money we can make, the more money I can make because if there's more of me out there. But what I quickly realized is that if it's not the right fit, if it's not the right culture fit, if it's not the right just life circumstance fit, because that matters too, then you won't make the money that you want to make, or it just won't work. Your ship will crash and burn and you'll just have to rebuild it. But I think that's the nature of entrepreneurship. And I feel like entrepreneurs who have been doing this long enough understand that you kind of crash a ship sometimes and you just rebuild it. And the successful ones are the ones who have continued to rebuild when they crash.
What do you think is one of the biggest mistakes you made while scaling when you crashed a ship?
Ooh, one of the biggest mistakes I made is hiring people that were not a culture fit.
Mm.
And now it's a very hard line for me. Like immediately when I recognize that someone isn't a culture fit, it's not even a question. It doesn't matter how much value you can bring to me. If you can't fit the culture, it or to the business, if you don't fit the culture, it's an absolute no.
What is your culture that you stand so strongly behind?
I think optimism and positivity. And so I'm looking for glass half full people in everything. And if your glass is half empty, or you give me any inclination that that's your perspective, then it doesn't work.
Mm. That's and
Yeah.
have you gotten better at finding that then in the interview process? At like kind of asking the right questions to
Um,
weed that out? Or is it just a gut
I
feeling?
know I know all the right questions to ask.
Yeah.
I know all the right questions to ask. As a matter of fact, one of my ways that I weed people, not weed people out, but how I determine if you're a good fit before I even talk to you in the interview process is that I ask you to write a letter, a description of all of the places that you work since you've had a job, why you quit, and what you learned, right? The moment I read that letter, and that's a submission before we get a face to face interview, I learned so much about people from there. So when you tell me what you learned from each job, if there's something positive that comes out of all of these in situations, then I'm like, okay, that's a good start. We should have a conversation. If it was my boss, I didn't get enough training and they didn't teach me how to do this, or my boss was, if somebody else is always the problem, it's a trend, it's a pattern. I can see that, right? Especially, and it's also how you thought about it, how you experienced it. So I've had jobs as I've grown that I've gotten fired from or let go of, and there's always something positive that came from it. I was like, it kind of hurt to be let go from this job. However, I learned this, and this. I didn't blame anybody for it. I saw areas that I can improve, or something that this was something that I didn't understand. And now that this has happened to me, I'm a better person and can go to my next position in a better place. So that's
I like
important
that.
to me.
I like it
Yeah.
because it's almost twofold too. A, they need to put in the effort to write some kind of letter, which in nowadays is like pulling teeth, I feel like.
Hmm.
So that is step one. And that like shows that they're very interested in step two is like you being able to read their answers and look for something very specific on if there'd be a good culture fit. And of course, now I'm
Yeah.
thinking about my jobs that I've been and been like, what have I learned from it? If I had to fill this out, like, would it be positive? Like, right? Like,
Everybody in the company has to do that, right? Like it doesn't matter what your role is, if it's a high level role, if it's a low level role, I just need to know that you have the mindset. Yeah.
yeah, mindset's so important. So important. So what advice do you have for other women as they grow their business and also want to maintain a personal life? What would you say to them?
Grow your business, to prioritize the things that are important to you. Put the big rocks in first. So evaluate what is the most important thing. If everything were to go to, I don't know, you can't say hell. If everything were to go to hell, what would mean the most to you, and make sure that you prioritize that first. And so if that is your children and your family, put those things in first. How are you going to make sure that you're intentionally connecting with them and having high quality experiences with them, and then put everything else around that?
Mm, I like that.
Yeah.
It's hard though, because I think about that because I have like different priorities all the time, and I think it took a long time for me to realize that one of my priorities is my business and how much I like it and how much I love it and how much joy I get from it. Because you read all the time like, oh, your business shouldn't be your life, and of course it's not my life, but it's a big part of it, and
It's
it's a part
close.
I really like it.
To be quite honest, I feel like there is no such thing as balance. Like something suffers, right? There is some lost on one side or the other. So if you are pouring a lot into your business, and take it from somebody who does pour a lot into their business, like I've had people judge me because I have a nanny. However, I am very, very intentional about having high quality interactions with my kid, right? So while some moms have very high quantity of time with their children, it's not always the highest quality, especially if you have toddlers. For me, the interactions that I have with my children are very high quality, right? So when we have dinner, we're sitting at the table eating dinner together and talking about our day. The weekends, I'm intentional about what are we going to do that connects us as a family. I have that capacity and even in the toddlerhood of toddlerness, I'm so excited to see my kids, because I'm like, I work so hard today, like all I need is you guys, right? As opposed to, I work so hard today and now I have to work hard at like parenting and cooking and
Mm,
cleaning,
mm,
and like
mm.
it's a lot. And I don't know who said we were supposed to do all of this stuff, because if we go back to just traditional roles, the things that are expected of women were expected of women with no job. So here we are in this hustle culture time where it's like we're supposed to kill it at work and then come and kill it at home too. That's just, it doesn't exist. I just don't think it exists.
No, no, I don't think it does either, which is funny because I always think about the title of my podcast and how I was trying to make it like pull, I started to make it like almost like tongue in cheek, right? I think a lot of
Yeah.
people miss
Yes.
that. But I was trying to make it like this whole like can you have a hustle and also balance it? Is balance something that's real? Can we have it all? And this whole have it all thing, I think came from the 90s. I feel like somewhere I read that like as women gain more opportunities in the workforce and yet we're still supposed to like do it all, it just all of a sudden became this like super mom thing. And like this in the 90s it was like, well, look, you can have it all. Look, you can have a job
Right.
and career, you can come home and cook for your kids on time, and you can, and then clearly that became like blew up in everyone's faces. And it's just interesting to see the way the woman in the workforce stereotypes have, or generalizations have changed over time. And I think now we're trying to, post pandemic, get to this whole like where we always have been, but kind of like we need more time with my kids. How do we manage that? Can we work from home and be there for the kids? It's like this. I'm interested to see how this shakes out in the next 10 years.
Yep.
Really.
It will be very interesting.
It will be. So where can we find you? You could share your website if someone is listening and is in the Houston area and wants to look you up and buy a house with you.
Yes.
Let me know.
Yes. So I think the catch-all for finding me is at Ayesha Shelton on Instagram. So Ayesha Shelton on Instagram. And so I do have a link in my bio, and you can see all the things that I do, some of the initiatives that I'm involved with on the philanthropic side, as well as we didn't talk about this and we don't have to at all, but I'm also co-owner of a residential real estate development company with my husband. And so we build everything from affordable housing to luxury custom homes. And that's also fun too. So we're growing businesses, more than one business in our family. As you can imagine, we're very busy people, but I think the catch-all is at Ayesha Shelton on Instagram.
So that's Park Street Homes, right? I actually did have that,
Park
and
Street.
I wanted to talk about it, but we didn't get to it.
Oh, no, 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 no. Listen, go look us up on Instagram, but at Park Street Homes here in the city of Houston.
Great. Awesome. So please share with us, what is one philosophy, mantra, or quote you try to run your business by?
Okay. I think I said it before, but if it can't be measured, it can't be managed. And so making sure that you're measuring your time, your talents, and your finances.
Yes, I have it actually in my notes. You can't manage what you don't measure. So yeah, good. Thank you. So thank you again, Ayesha, for joining me in this interview. And if you're part of our audience and you found this informative and valuable, do us a little favor, help us grow the show and share it. And hopefully Ayesha will share it as well on her Instagram, and you'll all get to listen to it as many times as you want. So thank you. Thank you again. And if you want to find me, obviously, Kiri Mohan, I'm most active on LinkedIn or even on Instagram at the Kiri Mohan. So thank you, Ayesha, again for joining me on this interview.
Thank you, Karen.